6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com. I am Chris at Lightforce, joining you this Halloween virtually by Anna Forsyth, A4603. Anna is currently dressed up for the night.
Yeah, I'm dressed as a girl who went out to brunch today.
I mean, I pull the curtain back a little bit here. This is an early episode because normally you'd be accustomed to them showing up on Tuesdays, but this one's showing up on a Monday. Monday happens to be Halloween. And what does that mean? Well, we're recording on Sunday, which our schedules are all askew, but that's my fault.
Most
Halloween, things. Baby force, and all that. It just, we elected to shift.
I thought you were going to do a spooky voice, but
I can't do spooky.
Oh, I guess the start to the Canucks season is scary enough.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, it's like the Scream movie, like the OG Scream, where like you think they might be good, and I was listening to a podcast about Scream. Do you know that like Wes Craven? I think it was Wes Craven was like the director, but they thought it was going to bomb.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, like it was like my goodness, it's bomb.
It's really low budget, right?
Well, it wasn't really low budget because of the names that they had involved, not only actors, but like behind the camera and behind the scenes and that. But it was like the script wasn't all that good, or like the initial script, and the screenplay got really sort of massaged, but it turned out to be something really, really good. But they were talking about how, you have this movie which was really trying to like take this like, the pretty high school type vibe, everyone's, all this, but really try to turn it into a horror genre. And that was the part that like you're trying to make something it's not, and yet
it worked, I guess.
It worked, right? So anyhow, it's kind of like the Canucks. They were trying to do something that they're not good at, and look at what they're starting to do now. Win games. Yeah.
Well, the last horror movie I saw was Midsommar, and I can see a lot of similarities between that movie and Canucks start to the season.
I don't know when the last time I saw like a horror movie was. Like it's not that I don't avoid them. It's just it's not like a draw.
Yeah,
like,
I agree. I'm not much of a horror movie person. I'm okay with them, but
yeah, like there's people who will be like, oh my god, it's a red balloon floating, and look, there's eyes coming out of the drain, and
it's a scary movie,
and people are, I'm sure it is, but like for me, it's not that I'm avoiding Pennywise. It's just like I could care less. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't, it's not a compelling factor one way or the other.
Did you know? Fun fact: it is the highest grossing horror film of all time.
Oh, really?
Singular film, and this is not accounting for inflation, but pure numbers.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. That's what people tune into the show to learn.
Yeah, fun movie facts.
Yeah. But, last week's show is going to be a tough one for you and I to top. We do not have a phenomenal guest in Aaron Volpatti with us this week. It was a great listen. Like I've received some really good feedback from people and that. And again, he, for some reason, missed last week's show. Go back and listen to it.
Pause this go back. We'll wait.
Yeah. We bring Aaron in pretty darn quick. So, I mean, you don't have to wait for an entire show. Like we could have done that, but we chose not to. So again, it's just what a story.
Yeah. Amazing.
And I'm just waiting for his book to arrive now.
Yeah. I'm excited to read it.
But we are going to talk about what the Canucks have been up to since that last episode, such as winning games, making trades, doing things, and all that and more. So let's start winding this podcast back up. When we last recorded, we had talked about how the Vancouver Canucks were coming up to that 10% mark of the season. They hadn't been looking good. They had 2 points out of the games that they had played, 2 of which were loser points. While we were recording, they were finding a way to lose to the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yep.
And you and I had wondered, the Seattle Kraken, the Pittsburgh Penguins, where are the points going to come from? And, well, apparently it was the Seattle Kraken and the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah. Turns out, I mean, if they had not won against Seattle, I think that might be, the point at which people would have had a meltdown, because it's somewhat arbitrary, 8 games. It's somewhat arbitrary we haven't lost to Seattle yet. Seattle look a little better this year. They've beaten Colorado, as we said. They've beaten Buffalo, who looked pretty darn good against Vancouver. Mm-hmm. But I do think that people would have been up in arms about that, especially as Canucks were so close to finding a way to lose against them.
Well, yeah, I mean, how did the game go? Well, the Vancouver Canucks get an early-ish goal from Mikheyev, and then they proceed to allow Seattle to get 2 very late goals. And I mean, when I say very late, having a goal to tie it up at 18:39, and then just over a minute later, having former Vancouver Canuck legend Jared McCann score another,
yeah,
gave you the feels, right? Like, we've seen this before. But hey, if there's one thing at least we had going for us, this was only the first period. And so second period rolls around. Mikheyev scores another early goal, ties it up. Okay, Mikheyev's shown up to play. This is great. And then midway through the period, Kuzmenko scores. Canucks go up by 1 again. So, okay, this ain't that bad. And, well, you don't want that to happen too early because, they hadn't even stopped playing the, cheer you up music when Seattle goes and ties it up.
Yeah, it's literally 15 seconds on the score sheet between the 2 goals. It's funny because my automatic reaction once Canucks score, I'm going to say something about the goal on Twitter, thoughts and feelings, whatever. I don't think I was even halfway through one tweet before I saw the next one. So I was actually, I missed the first period. I was watching the second, third period out and about with my netball team. I was eyes fixed on the TV, kind of ignoring everyone else on my table, like a rude person. But yeah, it just felt like, oh, this is that story. I see. Canucks are giving up the lead again.
They are. And, it's not a good feeling to see this happen going in the third period tied, especially with how the Vancouver Canucks have been playing. But what positives could we take from this game so far? Well, the Vancouver Canucks not giving shorthanded goals up. They're actually scoring on the power play. And the power play that's actually scoring is the second unit power play, which is good. Any team that can get production out of the second power play unit is in a good space, you'd think. But no, at the start of the third period, the Vancouver Canucks decided they wanted to win now. Petey comes out, pots an early goal. Connor Garland and gets himself onto the score sheet late, which you think, this game is done. Garland's potted the empty netter. But Seattle goes and scores one on the power play at 19:30, and I mean, I wasn't worried.
I actually saw it happened in that same bar in South Dunbar where the Canucks gave up that goal. Was it against the Sharks last season? Where it was literally in the last second of the game. So I was worried. I thought the Canucks had a pretty dominant third period. But if you think you don't need insurance, you always need insurance. Thank God Connor Garland scored the empty netter.
Well, no, but the Connor Garland goal was the insurance goal,
yes.
Right? I don't think anyone out there thought it was going to be the game-winning goal, which is why even though they scored with 30 seconds left to go in the game on the power play, I wasn't worried. I just wasn't confident at that point. Demko had started in goal, and I don't know if Demko is just tired, and that could very well be the case, but he's not looking very Demko-like right now.
That's the thing. Canucks are very much, and I think I've seen many tweets about this, but they're very much in the find out part of the F around find out era. right?
Mm-hmm.
Effing around counting on your Vezina caliber goalie, and then it's like, oh, anytime he dips below that, yeah, they're finding out that you can't just consistently depend on goaltending.
Yeah. But regardless, they got one more goal than the Seattle Kraken did. And guess what? Not only did they win the game, Bruce has number, was it 600?
Yes.
I think it was 600. Was it? Yeah. All of a sudden I was like, is it 8? No, I'm pretty sure it's 6. 600. So he's finally got that win.
I think Bo said, is it 400? Oh, no, it's, and Bruce had to correct him and say 6. Yeah. So.
But no, I mean, it felt good that the Vancouver Canucks could win a game. Obviously, they made it more interesting, a little bit harder, what have you. But a win's a win's a win, which then had people wondering what the heck's going to happen when the Vancouver Canucks go home to play the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have been in Vancouver. Like this is the weird schedule the NHL has, is that the Pittsburgh Penguins had arrived in Vancouver before the Vancouver Canucks had actually left to go to play Seattle.
Yeah.
And then Vancouver has to come home, play Seattle. And I didn't catch the details, but I had heard, I think it was on the broadcast, they had made slight reference to it. The Vancouver Canucks had issues getting out of Seattle and back into Vancouver or something.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either what the story was there, but you would think it's pretty smooth generally usually, but doesn't seem that way. It's funny, you kind of think of the Roxy flu as a thing of the past, but maybe not. Maybe it worked its magic on the Penguins. They certainly look tired, and I don't know if that's just because they're all pretty old.
Well, so, you mentioned Roxy flu, and I was going to say, do you think a team that old would go to the Roxy? Like,
oh, I've seen some people
well, no. Okay, I'm not.
Sid and Gino.
No. Let me walk this back. I'm not suggesting older people don't go to the Roxy. The handful of times that I've gone to the Roxy, I essentially go once per decade. There are people far older than me in the decade that I am visiting there. But as a professional hockey team,
oh yeah, but
they tend.
You would think
they should understand what the Roxy can do to you.
Yeah, they should, and yet it's caught out smarter folks than them. So, I don't know if they went through Roxy. I don't have any information on that. I think they probably didn't, but yes, they did look tired. But the fact that Canucks actually managed to capitalize on that fatigue and have a good game, that's pleasing.
And actually, I just want to point out we failed to mention JT Miller at the end of the game against Seattle, laying it out.
Yeah, I didn't realize that his new contract was just purely for dentistry, but he put everything on the line for sure. Would I prefer him to be more defensively responsible overall and him never blocking the shots? Yes, but nonetheless,
well,
props.
It when I saw him go down and do what he needed to do to ensure that puck did not make it through to the net, that essentially the final shot, very, very playoff-esque. And you could argue that the way the Vancouver Canucks were playing at that point, it was. I mean, word has now trickled out that management had been down to the players and had explained, you as a core have gone through 2 coaches now.
Yeah.
Don't think that's where the next change will be.
Yeah, exactly. It's not them, it's you, you're the problem.
Mm-hmm. So maybe that, has, lit a fire under players. I mean, like we've kind of suggested there is an opportunity to maybe make magic happen in the world of a JT Miller prior to his actual new deal kicking in. Maybe he took that personally. I do not know. But regardless, he goes down, lays it out, blocks a shot, I think he eventually got up with help, but they went to, I don't know, wherever the heck it would have been, Sportsnet Central before we actually learned if JT had made it back to the dressing room. But then, back into the game on Friday against the Penguins, JT did not miss the game. He was there playing. In fact, scored himself a goal at the end of it. But the Vancouver Canucks came out. They actually played relatively well. The Penguins relatively not.
Relatively not.
And, Spencer Martin, he looked good. I mean, it's not like he was really challenged, but he was doing everything that needed to be asked of him. And the Vancouver Canucks got goals from, throughout their lineup, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that Demko, he looked very pleased for Spencer Martin at the end, but I'm sure there's a tiny part of him that thinks, why can't they play that way in front of me?
Mm-hmm.
The 2 games Spencer Martin has had, is it 2 only? Or is it 3?
I think 2. I think it's 2. He had it's just the back-to-backs.
Yeah, correct. And he took a point from his previous. But yeah, the Canucks look better in front of him. Demko should be familiar with that because in the playoffs, the Canucks D looked far better in front of him than they ever did in front of Jacob Markstrom. So yeah, I'm sure that's frustrating in a way, but also it kind of shows that not that it can be done. Like I do think this defensive core is still pretty shaky, but you can there was an effort there that we haven't seen previously, like a team effort, a kind of solid effort, I guess I would want to say. And JT Miller playing on the wing seems to be working.
Mm-hmm. I suppose that's the case. I mean, who'd have thunk it? I get that, I don't understand why there was this desire to have JT as your center. Like, I'd have no issue if he's your, like a plan B center. But based on what we have seen from him as a Vancouver Canuck, being on the wing, being on PD's wing, has been where you have seen some very, very good value. Yes,
I agree with you, but I also completely understand where Canucks are coming from. Like, they want JT to be a leader at both ends of the ice, and they think that center spot
putting him on
teach him that.
Like, I don't understand how it hasn't.
It hasn't. No, I agree, but also, like, what's your center depth? And like, without JT.
Well, sure. I mean, if it was a matter of depth in the middle, at that part I understand. But like the teaching of leadership, like you got to consider if JT is your center on the ice, there's a good chance that your 2 other very responsible centers are not on the ice, and you've created a situation that is going to require others to pick up slack. I mean, hey, we've seen that up until really that Seattle game. Like, I think up to then, there has been a knock on JT Miller's effort defensively in almost every game prior to that point. So, whatever. I mean, a win's a win's a win. The Vancouver Canucks have 2 of them, and both of them came in regulation, which means they now have a total of 6 points and find themselves looking very closely at that last playoff spot because it is still early in the season, but it may have been a whole different, situation had the Vancouver Canucks lost both. There were rumors that Bruce was likely going to get the axe if the Vancouver Canucks lost against Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think was going to happen. You mentioned it previously, but I think management are pretty cautious about that. Booting another coach. But
well, it wouldn't, if you boot that coach, you're not bringing in someone new now. It's an interim the rest of the way.
Yeah, which we're in October. That's pretty dangerous. Anyway, but
it
yeah,
is.
They didn't lose. Bruce
No,
lives to fight another day.
Although the Vancouver Canucks have announced a huge press conference for Monday.
Yeah.
It's a good news press conference.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, Bo's new contract would be a good news conference, a good news press conference as well for the team, but I don't think they're even close on that.
It's bad news conferences. You don't announce them,
no.
First of all.
It's Friday.
Say, hey, all.
Friday afternoon.
Yeah, well, Friday. Yeah, but like that's the thing is you announce the news and you may have a press conference last minute. You don't say, oh, we got some big news and it's going to be shake your world up. It's positive. It's just how things work. One thing I did note in the rundown, and I sort of skipped over it, but to come back, is how the Vancouver Canucks are making good use of having their farm team down the highway, just down the Trans-Can there. They have a revolving door of assets being moved in between Vancouver and Abbey to fill in holes in the lineup that are occurring due to many injuries. To a handful of players who have maintenance days suddenly turn into you're going to the IR, Brock Besser, to someone like Quinn Hughes, who the Vancouver Canucks simply tried to, skate into the ground.
Yeah, the fact that the sort of talk coming out today from Quinn Hughes is that he was actually injured in preseason and just tried to skate through it.
Well, yeah, but that speaks to the depth, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, we have, and how injured must Travis Dermott and Tucker Pullman be? Not that they're as important, but like Tucker Pullman probably tried to skate through another concussion before he was put back on LTIR.
With headaches.
With headaches. Yeah, I wonder what could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Dermott went off in practice feeling woozy and hasn't been seen since. So yeah, that defense.
Maintenance day.
Maintenance days, plural. I could use a few of those. But,
So our listeners can't see this, but the executive producer has shown up on my side of the screen here.
Honestly, I didn't know what was happening until Chris waved a tail. And then I realized.
Well, so now it's my cat, Twilight. She is trying to sleep on the keyboard here. So, I mean, this show could just be over in a moment because the cat decided to hit a button here. Did the dog mistreat you, or has no one fed you yet? I don't know. Where were we? Oh, yes. Injuries.
The
fact that the
defensemen.
Vancouver Canucks have a depth issue, but the benefit is that what depth they do have exists in a rink just down the road when that team's in town. But it kind of, it's both a good and bad thing to see happen. Good in so much that it's possible that this may have been something that could have occurred in the past regime, but the team was in Utica and trying to get a player here or for the following night and then home, and next to impossible.
It's just,
but then it's not good because it is happening so frequently, and it is a revolving door.
Yes, and a lot of the players we're seeing come up are not, they're not going to be everyday NHLers soon, but they can also do a job, right? Will Lockwood, pretty good. Sheldon Dries, decent depth players, but aren't going to be difference makers exactly.
Yeah. A player who didn't get called up but finally found his way into the game sheet is Jack Rathbone.
Yep. This giant cat just being airlifted across the screen. Sorry. Jack Rathbone. Yeah. I mean, you hope his regular NHL job kind of comes sooner rather than later, but
yeah. Anyhow, looking ahead, though, the Vancouver Canucks are taking on the New Jersey Devils. Quinn's brother's in town. Quinn might be back in time for that game. And then that's on Tuesday, followed by a game against the Ducks on Thursday, and then the Nashville Predators on Saturday. And nothing real special happening this week.
No, nothing major. No major milestones or
nothing.
Cultural movements. I mean,
you go into the.
What are you talking about? The reverse retro is back.
Well, there's that.
What else could he possibly be referring to?
Well, Juice retires as a Canuck on the 3rd.
Right, that. Yes, I might swing by.
Reverse retro, I could care less.
No, it looks better than the Sprite can jersey, but it's just a bit
does.
Bland.
But yeah, no, Juice is signed a one-day contract and will retire as a Canuck on November 3rd. I'm curious, I know it's just logistics, but wouldn't it be cool if he came out it was a game time decision and got scratched and had to go up to the podium in full dress?
Yeah, I would. Or just a take a quick shift. 10-second shift.
Just one? Just one? Like, I mean, he could probably get some good minutes against the Ducks, but no, he's retiring. And I was actually going to ask, are you going to that game?
I am going to
was curious.
Both the game on the 3rd and the 5th. So 2 games this week.
Okay.
I'm very excited to see Juice retire as a Canuck. Him and Luongo were my favorite players when I first became a fan in 2011. Met him, lovely guy, very charismatic, this is such a great ending for him.
Yeah.
I think, he's just always been really key to this organization culturally as a player. Huge personality. It was really great to see this happen for him. Yeah,
I was out with a friend of the show, Nexus, and Jay for dinner earlier this week, and we were sort of chatting about how the Vancouver Canucks miss a player like Juice in the room. But I mean, that era of team was also full of leaders who looked at the Sedins, whereas it kind of feels like this room has leaders, but they're not all sort of on the same page.
Yeah.
And don't could you imagine if the Sedins were to say X and someone were to say, I don't agree? That old roster, there are enough people in the room that would not only tell you to say X, you would have apologized profusely for ever considering that Y was even in the alphabet.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I think you're right, but I think another way to look at it is the reason Kevin Bieksa got to be this big personality is because the Steens were that strong, quiet leadership, right? And I think Bo's getting there, but he's only one person. As much as he's made in their image, and he doesn't even have a contract. He can't have as secure a spot.
Well, he's going to get paid. I mean, he scored 2 goals. He's playing pretty darn well. He's on track here. But when you think about sort of Bo is kind of like what, Hank and Danny were.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have the Luongo, the BX sort of Petey might be a leader, JT might be a leader, but scuttlebutt is that Petey and JT are different style leaders who don't necessarily agree with each other's leadership style.
I guess is not shocking, at all. Petey and Quinn, you can see them being, a certain type of, providing a certain type of leadership, but they are very much head down, quiet, get on with their job. JT just likes yelling and swearing at people, which again is another type of leadership. Has its place.
The divergent styles, though, isn't so much the issue. It's just when you have leaders who aren't on necessarily the same page.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah.
Bo's not the type of guy to go and he doesn't seem to be the type of guy to sort that stuff out. But anyhow, different era, different team, different players. Mm-hmm. And Juice is sort of not the final piece of that era, but one of the last pieces of that era we'll probably see this type of ceremony for.
Yeah.
I mean, Edler, Tanev, Markstrom, they're still playing, but Tanev and Edler maybe, but not even. It's just...
No.
Juice is just a different person in that ecosystem.
Yeah, and he was such a huge part of that culture. I mean, we saw Edler and Tanev with the last Bastions in 2011 team. But we had Kevin Bieksa saying, "I will go down with this ship." He was.
Oh, and he would have until such time as he was asked, "Would you mind going to another ship?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is a similarly creaky ship over there. Mm-hmm. Would you mind paddling over? So, yeah, I do think it is different for, comparing those sort of players in terms of the culture.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. He, as you say, really deserves it. Great at his job currently as an analyst as well. So I think that helps. He's still kind of a presence.
Just give him, I know whatever segment were to come to be, because it's more sort of hot stove stuff, but I would love to see sort of a Coach's Corner-esque show with Juice and someone.
Yeah.
I think that like giving different perspective or that type of, I think that like Elliot and him would be good, I think, together. Well, the reason I use with like an Elliot, it's the straight lace, but I mean, if you wanted sort of more of the broadcast presence, I've got no issue with like a David Amber and Juice.
Yeah, David Amber, maybe Jennifer Bottrell, like just someone who's a good presenter, because Elliot doesn't say enough. He's straight laced, but he doesn't.
No,
say
and
enough.
I only said Elliot because Elliot is more business, like it's the business part, whereas like Juice can be your color, your personality, and having I feel like a segment like that which should have some approach, not to force it, but
I mean,
if there were to ever be a desire to get to that space,
I will say I do like that they're trying new things on the national broadcast. Do I love the weird like spinny table thing they had last year? No, that was awful. Like, and now they're in like weird low chairs at the end.
Well, they're like just kicking back, sitting around the coffee table.
It looks so awkward.
Just give them some cigars and whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. But I like that they're trying new stuff. I just feel like it's way too focused on bizarre like aesthetics than actual change. So hopefully we'll get to see some new kind of figurations, new ideas down the road.
Agreed. Neil, we're going to take ourselves a short break. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
Whether it's Trader Jim or Trader Pat, trades took place. We didn't really talk to them. We alluded to them in Rewind. But the Vancouver Canucks not only made one trade, they made two this week. One trade was like and the other trade was okay, not bad. Like,
I like your sound effects. This should be a new thing. Chris makes you have like 2 seconds to make a sound in reaction to like a trade or a game or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the sound effect segment. But, talking about the first trade that took place, this was early in the week and had more to do with finding, I think, a sizable presence that could be inserted in the lineup that would provide some defensive responsibility that might be missing from a one JT Miller, and also provide the flexibility to move a player like Miller to the wing. The Vancouver Canucks acquired Studnicka from the Chicago Blackhawks. Are really excited that they were able to find someone to take him. And the Vancouver Canucks gave up Mikey DiPietro, which honestly, I'm not upset about. Like, unfortunately, Mikey D, he sort of fell out.
Wait, did you say Chicago or Boston?
He went to Boston?
He went to Boston.
I said Chicago. Sorry.
Oh.
Was it Boston?
Yeah. That's all right. That was the other trade.
Bear was Chicago?
That was the Stillman trade.
Stillman, Chicago? Yeah, well,
no,
I'm so confused. Anyhow, the point is,
but the trade was Chicago, yeah.
I know when this Mikey D fell out of favor, people there were somewhere like, oh, that's not good value for Mikey DiPietro. The Vancouver Canucks ensured there was no value to be had for Mikey DiPietro. Like, that's on the team.
Yeah, the Canucks' depth goaltending has been. Partly it's been managed poorly, and partly there's just been terrible circumstance with COVID and with having to share a farm team with the St. Louis Blues. Like, it wasn't good. So, yeah, Mikey didn't play anywhere near as much as he should have. He hasn't developed properly. He needed a new spot. He needed a fresh start. Didn't love giving up Jonathan Meyerberg along with him, just for the privilege of acquiring a depth
so this
forward.
is the part that sort of befuddles me. The Vancouver Canucks have talked about a lack of defensive depth. And Myron Berg is considered to be a pretty solid prospect. Now, yes, the Vancouver Canucks have a lot of prospects that have not panned out on the blue line. But Myron Berg collectively was a player that, if you were into the fancy stats, he said, this is a good opportunity here. If you were into the see it with my eyes group, Myron Berg was a player that you thought good things about. So he alone should be enough for a Studnicka, no? Or was it the Vancouver Canucks needed to free up? Like, this is, I don't know the contract side of things, but was it a need to take Mikey D off the payroll or off the books from a contract perspective that you see Boston doing a favor? Because before I say peace be with you, Mikey D, Boston has loaned him back to Abbotsford to be a backup goaltender for the Abbey Canucks.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he's not an NHL starter, like, not close. So I was kind of excited for him to get a new opportunity because I think he's a classy person. He seems way mature for his age. The fact that he was pushed into an NHL starter spot a few years ago, I don't know if that has to do with it. But, like, I think he's, even when it was clear that he was a spare part, he's always been conducting himself with complete, professional, in a completely professional manner. So you're just thinking, okay, new opportunity for Mikey, and yeah I guess he has to still wait for that.
As it stands, Mikey is going to be, at some point in time, kid's going to have to play somewhere, whether it's in Abbotsford as a backup goaltender on loan from Boston or within the Boston organization. But Studnicka as a depth forward for the Vancouver Canucks ain't the worst. It's just I'm not entirely keen on the price they gave up to acquire him. This happened Thursday. Yeah. News comes out. I think it was just before the puck dropped in Seattle, if I remember serves me correct, because it was a late start too, 7:30. But regardless, the Vancouver Canucks weren't done there. They made another deal on Friday, acquiring Ethan Bear. Now, some backstory here. This rumor has been ongoing for a couple weeks now. And the scuttlebutt on the scene was that if Ethan Bear did not find a team to go to via trade, that Carolina was probably going to place him on the waiver wire, which, interesting enough to note, do you know who the team would be to have the first claim on the wire? The Vancouver Canucks. Now, there's no guarantee that a team will place a player on the waivers or will do so at a time that's most opportune for you to then put in said claim. So I'm not upset that the Vancouver Canucks found a way to acquire a player that they ultimately would have probably put a claim in on anyway. But what I really like about sort of this deal is that, one, they got some of the contract eaten. So if he had been put on waivers, that contract is coming completely, right? So there's a little bit of a sweetener. And the Vancouver Canucks also got a prospect in Lane Peterson, which might be a throw-in for the price of just a 5th round pick. And that type of pick, I'm not too concerned about. I am a little concerned that the Vancouver Canucks are still in the business of trading picks when they don't have lots in the earlier rounds. But hey, if Ethan Bear cost you a 5th round and you got a throw-in with some eaten contract and a piece of fodder for Abby, not a bad deal.
Yeah. And I'll use this moment to talk about the Abbotsford Canucks. I watched the game last night. Lane Pedersen was one of the best players on the ice. And that's not a huge compliment, but him and William Lockwood
that's a real setup.
He
was phenomenal on the ice. I just need to say something. But that's not a good thing because the rest of the team, not so good.
Yeah,
honestly,
it seemed to be William Lockwood and Lane Pedersen waging a 2-man war against the mediocrity of their team, and ultimately they lost because the Abbey Canucks lost in overtime. But yeah, they're not playing inspiringly well down in the Fraser Valley. So let's hope that improves a bit. And we don't have a like father like son kind of moment where they just keep giving up leads. But we'll see. But yeah, that is to say that Lane Pedersen, not a bad prospect. Good AHL player / NHL player.
The addition, though, of Bear gives you some depth on the blue line. Bear had found himself out of the lineup in Carolina. Like he needed a new scene. I think his agent had said that, if he just wanted to play, put him on waivers to get him to the minors just so he could play. I am a fan of players who want to play and will play wherever they want to go or are told to go in this particular case. And I think, one of the things that we saw under the previous regime wasn't trades where it's like, let's see, let's do something reasonable and see if we can reinvigorate, said player. It works out sometimes it doesn't. One of the most jarring examples of this type of trade was when the Vancouver Canucks got themselves Marcus Naslund. I'm not suggesting that, Bear is that, but the prices, the prices to which they paid to get Bear, that's the price you're willing to pay for the projects.
Right.
Old regime, this last one, that's not what they did. The old regime would have been, let's get the project because project's going to work out.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You're right. Like we've said before, we don't mind Jags. You just got to pay them Jag money. And we don't mind projects. You just don't want to give up a huge amount to get those. I think Ethan Bear could be a good player. I think he obviously didn't do great in Carolina, but I don't think he fit in there, and that's kind of fair enough. I think he's a great example and a good voice in terms of diversity. Like, he speaks up a lot about Indigenous issues. He's very vocal about that, so that's another positive thing. And props to Vancouver for making that part of their announcement.
I had not seen that they had actually included that in the announcement. So yeah, I don't know the word. I can't remember the word, but yeah, they use the Cree for welcome, which. And for those who are curious, he's in the last year of his deal. He is an RFA. He does have arbitration rights available to him. But if things do pan out, the Vancouver Canucks have a right-handed defenseman who they've got some contract power over. And if things don't work out, it's not like this is an OEL deal, or till
the end of time.
It's funny. Cap Friendly has now reached the point where you can see the end of the OEL deal.
Yeah, at least it's visible on the screen now.
4 seasons after this away. But then, as you go down, there is a deal there that then goes on forever, kicking in the start of next year. So yeah, fun that. Anywho, Vancouver Canucks, they're on the road after the 3-game homestand. I think we'll have a pretty good indication if this team is done or if this team is going to go and give us fits all season based on the 3 games at home. Those 3 games at home with the Vancouver Canucks make them look competitive. If they get more points than they leave behind, that's the team that's going to give us fits all season long. If they don't look so hot and then head out on the road, Ottawa's been playing well. Montreal's been playing well. The Toronto Maple Leafs are the Toronto Maple Leafs. They got to go and face the Boston Bruins, the Buffalo Sabres before they come home to a team like LA who's been having some issues themselves. But,
hey, LA beat the Leafs the
True.
weekend,
so, for anyone here that complains about, when the Leafs are in town and the fact that we have these early starts in Vancouver, they had a 4 p.m. puck drop down in LA. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, so it's not just
I
us.
get it's a little bit different in the United States because like weekend sports is often not evening, it's afternoon. But hockey at 4 p.m. is competing against college ball on the weekend. If this was a Sunday, I would be less alarmed, but it's a Saturday night.
Yeah,
and I've not experienced it, large enough sample size, but traffic in LA is usually not conducive to anything happening in the afternoon. So.
right. Yes, there is a reason they call the LA MLS Derby El Clasico.
And well, at least that stadium isn't like smack dab downtown. So, whereas the rink is, what is the name of the rink in LA now? Is it still the Staples Center? Or, no.
I thought it was still the Staples Center. So I'm
because it's crypto or something.
Oh no,
now.
wait, isn't it? It's not big. No, yeah.
Yeah, crypto.com arena. That's what it is now. Because I remember there was the big dealio.
Jesus.
At the time.
I hope they paid their money up front and it's not in crypto.
If it is, I mean.
Otherwise, they might be facing an Arizona situation. Did you see any of the stuff from
First of all,
Arizona?
I was showing Nexus and Jay the pictures of the temporary visitors dressing room. That was pretty cool. I liked how they were showing all the fans that were in the stadium, and someone comments, "Oh, that's pretty cool that you got everyone in one picture." But I feel bad because I genuinely think there is a fan base in, well, Phoenix, let's just say Arizona, but Phoenix. The problem is they have not been given an opportunity to capitalize because they've had poor ownership groups, and then the buildings they've been in, including, whatever the heck this one in the university is called, because I have no clue. Okay, Mullet
Arena,
like as in partying.
Yes, that was why they were.
Okay, I did not know that. That makes
mullets.
a whole lot more sense. I'm like, when did the business in the front, party in the back become the thing in Arizona? A Mullet Arena, is that is obviously named after someone, not hair.
It must be, but
good for those fans.
So obviously, I think I get it from there's diehard fans there that do not appreciate being made fun of. I do think it's a good idea if you are in the situation that you're in to fill up the student section like they're doing and do things like handing out mullets to fans. That's fun. But like they're still charging a buttload for the regular tickets. The concessions are still hockey concession prices, like very expensive. So it's just kind of like, well, I don't know. To me, I'm just like, well, I don't necessarily know if I feel that.
Well, no,
sorry. That's the best way to handle things.
I have no issue with the fans, those who've supported this team. Like, I think there is a good following. The problem is completely different situations, different scenarios. But like when the Vancouver Grizzlies were here, people would take shots at Vancouver fans. The team that was continually being presented to the fans was a hot mess. Management would bring in players who would outwardly say, I do not want to play in Vancouver. I want nothing to do with Canada. And if there's one thing I know about a Vancouver sports fan, the quickest way to get a reaction is to say how much you dislike the city, its fans, or in the greater sense, the province or country. And it's not like you'll necessarily get booed. When you play for the home team, the fans will say, well, I don't need to watch you. I can do 400 million different other things. You want to call that a fair weather fan? Fine, so be it. But that's how sports fans here work. And, when I think as to what's going on down in Arizona, I couldn't imagine what it would be like if it was up here in Vancouver. Like if the situation was the same here in Vancouver, I don't think they'd have been able to fill up the Thunderbird Arena. Actually, how many seats does the Thunderbird Arena and have out at UBC?
I don't know. It's bigger than you think, though. Like, I've seen a concert there, and it seemed to me,
So
obviously,
yeah, so it's
this is just
5,054.
guesswork,
So
but
the Doug
it's
Mitchell
bigger
Thunderbird
than
Sports
average.
Center is 5,054, which, yeah, I think is bigger. I was thinking like a couple thousand, so 5,000 is pretty big. What's the Mullet Arena?
5,000, right? Or 3,000? 5,000. I don't know. Apparently, the Abbotsford Centre
Mullet
is
Arena is
7,000.
5,000. So
I'm surprised.
Thunderbird has 54 more seats. And honest to goodness,
Yeah, I mean, the Abbotsford Arena has 2,000 more
if what's
seats,
going on in
apparently.
Arizona was happening here in Vancouver, I genuinely don't believe they could go and fill that arena. Vancouver fans would just be like, screw this, I'll go elsewhere. Got lots of other things to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could get away with what's happening
Well, no.
in Arizona with the Canadian team, though. Like, we've had bad ownership and we've had bad management in Vancouver, like Kevin knows, but yeah.
Speaking of bad
It just
ownership,
wouldn't
bad
happen.
management, try being a fan of the BC Lions for a few years. There's some characters through there.
Oh.
The
they
BC
not
Lions
in the
are, but like
playoffs?
when
That's
this is
why I
not
heard
more recent times, but in old times, like they've had, like the Canadian Football League has had some really interesting people own teams and run teams, and BC unfortunately has not been immune to that. Like stockbrokers who just run out of money, others that apparently make promises for teams that they can't, or pay for players to fly to an away game, but decide that they're not going to pay for the return flight home, stuff like that. Yeah. Anyhow,
Well, yeah, that sounds like a great way to run a team.
so, but I mean, you still had.
I mean, they did also have two teams with the same
history
name.
there though isn't that the league went and allowed it. It was you had two teams with a lot of history and that name playing in different leagues that became amalgamated. And instead of saying you change or you change, they allowed them to both exist because the actual team name, while it was the Rough Riders, one was Rough Riders, the other one was Rough Riders as a stolen word. But again, it's
Rough Riders, sure.
Could you? I mean, I'm trying to think of a similar situation happening. Let's say in through the FA, right? Like if you had two teams with a same name with lots of history, and suddenly they're both in the EPL, right? I mean, it's much more loose because you're like, well, Chris, there's a lot of football clubs there. They're all football club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that they're a 92
No, I know, I get that, but you could, I mean, yeah, it's numerically a lot different, but you can appreciate which team has to give up their history and be forced into the change. I mean, here it was Ottawa, but that's because the original Ottawa team folded.
Funny.
Then the new one that came back tried to use that name, only to find out that the previous owner who had folded the team kept the name and wouldn't give it up without paying bank. The new owners didn't. So then they had a different name. That name didn't work out. And then they rebranded to Red and Black, or as I like to call them, the Ottawa Rod Blacks. They should just throw Rod Black on the helmet and call it a logo.
Sure. I don't know. I would have just preferred, like, the Washington football team. Like, why couldn't they have kept that name? It was such a good name. Yeah. It's just like, oh, we had such a problematic name before. Let's pick a name that no one's going to have an issue with. Yay, military.
It's North American sports. Right. I'm genuinely surprised that you see like something like the MLS, their fan base accept the use of, football club like FC as a team name. But also look at most of the teams. It's not Vancouver FC, it's Vancouver Whitecaps FC. So there is a blend. But it as newer teams have come on,
honestly,
we now have like
we are
LAFC,
so
not to be confused with the LA Galaxy, who are also an FC in LA.
yeah. Yeah, and there's, DC United, right? There's Miami. Isn't there like
Real
a
Salt Lake.
Real team or something?
Which,
Real Salt Lake, yeah.
yeah, but do you know, like the Real
basically
Salt Lake wasn't like a team in Salt Lake saying, we just want to call ourselves Real Salt Lake, right? It's because that they're, I think, partially owned by the ownership group of Real Madrid.
Right, I mean, and City own Miami.
Yeah,
New
like
York
there's
City
a lot.
FC
And there's a lot of that
ownership
synergy.
group.
But I mean, if you go back though into like the early days of Major League Soccer and some of the team names, it's some fun times. Like you have the Metro Stars, the Mutiny.
The Mutiny is a good name. That's a really good name. I love a singular team name, which is why I'm a big fan of. Like,
how
I'm
about the
glad that
Kansas
Seattle
City
went
Wiz?
with Kraken because I love it.
WIZ.
Now, how's spelling Wiz?
Yes,
Okay,
but
like
not wizard. Wiz.
Like the Wiz.
Like the original MLS teams. Like
Okay, to me, like I'm
you had like
thinking,
the New England Revolution, which still sort of exists today. I mean,
it's lame, but I get it.
Columbus Crew is still a team. DC United still a team. NYNJ, so New York, New Jersey, so NY/NJ Metro Stars. The Tampa Bay Mutiny. The Colorado Rapids, which still exists. The Dallas Burn. They're no longer the Dallas Burn. The Kansas City Wiz.
That's a crazy
the Los
name. I love
Angeles
that.
Galaxy, which still exists. And then the San Jose Clash.
Okay, I don't mean to be crude, but both the Kansas City Wiz and Dallas Burn could be like both.
Well, no, but that's the thing. Like, no one thought that would be an issue. Could you, like, the moment I see that name, I could totally see, like, if that team existed today, coming to any other barn and immediately fans correlating it. Like, it would have been the first thing in my, 13-year-old brain.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
we are so far off the rails.
It's okay. That's why people continue to tune in. Or why they tune out, I do not know.
Anyway, do we have anything else pertinent to say about the Canucks?
Stuff's happening. Stay tuned.
They play a few games. I'm going, so please win.
Win it for Juice. Win it for Anna. Win it for Bruce. I like how when the Vancouver Canucks are up, is it 4-1 or whatever against the Pittsburgh Penguins, fans are chanting Bruce, there it is. It was all Bruce. I mean, I don't have an issue with the Bruce, there it is chant. Does it bother me? It just seems odd that when the team has gotten off this sort of this slide and finally has a game where they're breaking it open and Bruce, there it is the chant. It's, anyhow.
I don't know. I feel like hockey crowds aren't that complicated. They don't like having more than one thing to focus on. So there's Go Canucks Go and Bruce, there it is. Yeah. That's all they're capable of, unless the Larshiders
actually,
in the building.
I understand that the Larshiders might have a few games this season. Again.
Yes. So the first one being on Saturday. So that's the second game I'm going to. So...
Yeah, there was a comment in Canucks Reddit that the Larsha, so people need to get the Larshiders behind the sell the team chants. This was during the dark times of the road trip. And not one person in Canucks Reddit replied to that to suggest, like, you do realize the Larshiders as a group are against that type of chant here, there, and everywhere. It's not something that would occur.
Yeah, I mean, also, I'm not entirely sure that we had our tickets by then, so... Yeah, it's an interesting relationship with the team.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'll put it
I'm
that
certain
way.
it will be forevermore. Until such time as no one goes to games.
But yes, I don't see that Can't ever have
But anywho, here we are at the end of the show. It is a day early. Happy Halloween. Hopefully anyone who went out and got candy. Anyone who gave out candy gave it all away. And those of you who didn't do the candy, that's A-okay too. I'm a little concerned as to how the fireworks will be for Puppy Force, for Sky. But I'll have to report back next show too.
Mm-hmm.
So what final words of wisdom do you have for everyone there?
Yes. Hoping for a less scary week on the Canucks front. Hoping some of our undead
Are resurrected?
You know.
Brought, not instead of being brought back to life,
That's
like
a good
full
word.
on resurrection. Yeah.
Resurrection.
Yeah.
I like that word. Let's go with that.
Cool.
And yeah.
Speaking of resurrection, I'd really like to resurrect the use of listener voicemail in episodes. The easiest way to drop us a message is to use your computer or your mobile device and go to speakpipe.com/C4podcast. You can record something, let us know your thoughts. And if you do, we will play that question or comment in an upcoming episode. I check each and every week just to see if there is anything. And each and every week, I am disappointed to say, I see you have no voice messages yet. But Anna, where else can people get involved in the conversation?
Well, a fun way to get involved is Discord. We have game day channels to, worry about Canucks giving up another lead. We have Gate 16 where our main hockey conversation goes on. We have Off Topic. We have Nom Nom where people post their dinners sometimes. And very occasionally we have people in Allow Gaming, which is where people tend to organize some game meetups, etc. But anyway, Discord's the place to be. It's discord.io.
Bingo. And obviously social media channels, we're at the C4 Podcast pretty much every which way to Sunday, including today, which is Sunday. But on behalf of Anna, A403, myself, Chris at Lightforce, I'm signing this episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com off with We Out.